Welcome to BlackUSA.news Morning Show. I'm your host, William Honolulu Jr. Join us as we explore the news and opinions that impact our community. We break down how the major stories have a very personal, local, and racial impact. No topic is off limits, but even if the conversation gets rough, we're always going to keep it real.
And salutations, all my friends out there in internet land. I am William Honolulu Jr., and I have the honor and privilege of hosting the Black USA News Morning Show. Good morning to you. I hope you are having a wonderful day. I hope you are very rested. If you're a coffee drinker, I hope you've had that this morning. If you need a good stretch, take the opportunity and just stretch it out right now. Just feel it all. Just feel it all. I am excited today because I am partnering with a young lady, Jamie Washington, and she has created a group, and it is designed to really help support children who have parents who were addicted to substances during their youth and sometimes even into adulthood. They have a very unique perspective. They have a very unique set of needs. And being raised by a substance addicted parent for many people is traumatic by itself. It is an ongoing, a chronic trauma. And so we're going to talk about trauma in the larger context of how it relates to your business opportunities and what you may be able to do, and how you can leverage what you've learned from trauma in order to really grow your enterprise and get your paper game up. But you know what we always like to do first? We like to talk about our partnerships, particularly our partnership with Breadcoin. Breadcoin is an amazing organization that takes your donation and matches them with other organizations. It matches those donations with their coins. So each one of their coins right now, because of donations from people like you, each coin is worth about $2.50. They make sure that these coins are distributed through existing network of community activists and supporters. So basically, there are people who are already on the ground who for years have been working with people who are homeless, victims of domestic violence, people who are trying to escape commercial sex work, not commercial sex work, but human trafficking. Because a lot of human trafficking is there is a decent amount of human trafficking that is not for sexual purposes. It's more for labor. Never get it twisted. One of the things that they really reemphasized for me at the NAACP convention last week was about how the labor movement, or how the exploitation of labor, how the greed of people in charge really has led to some of the more heinous activities in our society. And so we're proud to partner with an organization like Breadcoin that allows an individual to keep their dignity. Once you have a Breadcoin, you can go into any of the participating restaurants, give them the coin, and you can get your meal. We often in America, we ask people to look broke enough so that we can feel like we should help them, like they deserve or they're worthy of assistance. Breadcoin doesn't do that, and I am grateful to be that we partner with an organization that really understands the value of dignity. Speaking of which, dignity and integrity are incredible characteristics in our elected officials. We are starting to get a better sense. We are getting a better sense from the January 6th committee on how important integrity was. We see a president and a lot of enablers who had no integrity, who had no dignity, who didn't care about the shame of the acts that they were committing. They just wanted power. That's it. What we are doing at Black USA News is that we are going through and we are interviewing candidates directly. We are talking to them about, what are they going to do, and getting them on the record about what their plans are and about how things are going to go under their administration or with them as elected officials. So please make sure that you click on or go to our website or go to our Facebook page and check out the links for that, for our continuing coverage of the ongoing 2022 election in Maryland. All right, let's see. Oh, darker than blue grill. You know what? That's one of the things I tell you all about running a morning show. I tend not to get up and be able to eat. I don't eat breakfast before we get here. So then we get to something like this, and I know how good the food is at Darker Than Blue, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could have some right now. I literally, my mouth is watering. I'm like, oh my God, because I know how good Darker Than Blue is. The prices are reasonable. They're located centrally in downtown. They have a beautiful establishment, wonderful staff, incredible food. Please make sure that you go out and visit Darker Than Blue as soon as you get an opportunity. You will not be disappointed. Also, big up to Fosterpreneur. I have an opportunity to serve as the board of directors for Fosterpreneur, and I am so proud of this organization. We're going to be bringing you very soon some of the students in our cohort in our partnership with Casa Valentina. We talked about that a little while ago. We're going to bring them to the table so they can talk a little bit about their lives, talk a little bit about the program, talk a little bit about what they've learned. So I am way excited about that. So that's going to be awesome. Well, y'all, I am indoors and it's still a little hot. The air is on, not on a lot because, BG&E, I got gas and electric. I'm trying to keep that bill, moderate. But the heat has been ridiculous. And it amazes me how, people who have never studied science will talk to people who have studied science their entire lives and tell them that they're wrong. It is amazing to me the hubris of certain people because, aside from science, aside from just, work, the instruments and things that they've measured and the reports that they've issued, you can see it happening. The ice shelf in Greenland is melting very quickly. Europe is sweltering, like they are experiencing heat that they are not prepared for. Like literally in the recorded history of Europe, they've not had to experience heat like this. Their houses are designed for the cool and cold temperatures, designed to retain heat. So when they're getting hit with this type of broiling, it is destroying the economy. It is destroying everything, and it is just it's a lot to deal with. And so, climate change isn't the topic for today. I am not versed enough in it to feel comfortable speaking on it right now. But I do recognize it's hot. It is hot. It is hot. And again, it's summer. Yeah, but I can tell you that it doesn't normally get this hot, as hot as it's been in the last bunch of years. And it kind of comes back to this whole thing about greed, and a lot of the greed is a trauma response. So I do need to tell you all about my company. Let me do that right now. Hi, my name is William Honolulu Jr., and I'm the host of the BlackUSA.news Morning Show and the president of the Grinding Gang Incorporated. The Grinding Gang is an organization that helps small business owners in the nonprofit and for-profit communities figure out how to make sense of all the noise. There's a lot of information out there, and sometimes it gets a little overwhelming. We help you develop business plans. We help you figure out what to do with a lot of the information you receive, and we also help you figure out how to become more profitable. We also host a variety of workshops. You can check out our next workshop on grant writing right here. All right. So we really help you take your business to the next level. There's a lot of information out there. And sometimes, you read one article that says one thing, you read another article that says something else. You hear one lecture that says this, you see this video on YouTube that says something totally different. And it's like, what do I do? We help you work through that. And like I said at the beginning of the show, the Grinding Gang is going to be partnering with Jamie Washington and her group to support activities for individuals who are children of addicted parents. parents who had substance abuse issues. And I am really excited because, especially especially in our communities, there are a lot of people whose parents, for at least a portion of their lives, had issues around substance abuse, whether that substance was liquor, whether that substance was, marijuana, whether that substance heroin, cocaine, crystal meth. There are a lot of adults in our society, not just the children, but there are a lot of adults who have parents who have been addicted to substances, and that shapes how they engage in life. So one of the things that we find, I found in research and also in practice, is that many people who come from disinvested communities come to the table with trauma. When I'm talking about trauma, I'm talking about there was a life event that shifted the way that they see the rest of the world in ways that are harmful to their success. So it's important to distinguish between kind of three different types of trauma that I'll be talking about. Just want to make sure the distinction. Hey, Michael, how's it going? Michael from Tampa, always with us. Great to see you, bro. So when I'm talking about trauma, we're thinking about it in kind of three different layers. There's individual trauma. It's maybe a physical event or an emotional event, or a way that what you perceive to be what was going to happen in the world just didn't happen. And that can be life altering. And so there's a individual trauma, community trauma, and then individual trauma, group trauma, then community trauma. And so let's say something happens to you and you alone, and that's the individual trauma. Group trauma is like it sounds. There was a group of you all where something happened to, and then community level trauma is that there is this level of trauma or a level of these events and these things that alter the trajectory or the communal psychology of the community psychology, an event or interaction that has had that. I can talk about a lot, but as far as community level trauma, I look at it as a lot of community level trauma can also be vicarious or secondary. So I think I've shared this on the show before. My interactions with law enforcement have always been by the book. I've never had an incident where I was harassed. Hell, most of the time when I was detained or I was stopped by an officer, whether it was traffic or anything like that, it was because I was doing the thing. And so I've never had the experience personally, but what I do know is that every time lights flash in behind me while I'm driving, or every time I see a police officer or what have you, there is this piece of me that gets afraid. There's this piece of me that cringes, that tightens up, expecting something to happen. That is vicarious trauma, because so many people like me have been murdered by the police or have been accosted or arrested for no reason. So in me, there is this fear that is not reflective of my experience. That things that happen to someone else can also be traumatic for the person. And a big thing to understand about trauma, especially as we bring it in and link it to business, is that you need to recognize that, one, trauma is something that happened to you. It happened to you. The other thing is that this happening has shifted your perspective in life, and in many cases has led it to be unhealthy. Trauma is not what makes you better. You were that. Trauma happens and you step up your game in many cases. Good morning, Quandra. How you doing? So trauma gets you to step up your game. And what happens is that I've seen this a lot, and I've adjusted my business and when I was practicing in law, my legal practice, to focus more on social emotional health of the clients that I'm working with, because I realized that a lot of times when people engage in business, they're not trying to really do business. They're looking for business to be a marker or to be a reflection point of their internal value. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. It's important to remember that trauma is personal. there is often efforts underway to standardize trauma. So there are things that if are traumatic or if happen to you as a society, we have said, okay, that is enough by itself that it is traumatic. If you are abused, that is society recognizes that is traumatic, and that is something that needs to be addressed. But what a lot of times we don't take into consideration is that sometimes the trauma is because of the narratives we've had in our head about what life will look like. If you believe that your parents are there to if your parents are there to protect you, if they don't do that, that is traumatic. Even if the thing that happens by itself is not traumatic, does not have a traumatic effect on you, the fact that they were supposed to be there to protect you and did not could be traumatic. Finding out that a spouse has cheated on you or a significant other has cheated on you, that can be traumatic. Not because the activity itself was physically traumatic or anything like that. It is the fact that I thought that the world was going to be one way, and I have found out based on someone else's actions that it is not, has altered my view of things. I'll tell you all about an example of trauma, and you know how it goes here. I use myself as an example of how I've navigated through, because it's one thing to tell you what I think you should do, but it's another thing to tell you what I know has happened and has worked for me. So one of the largest traumas in my life, there is a cornucopia, but one of the most shaping had to do with Santa Claus. And I have a lot. I know people who are listening. My friends listening was like, "Oh God, not the Santa Claus story again." Yes, again. So I was about 9 or 10 years old, and we were at the end of December, getting ready to wrap up for break, and teachers asking questions like, "Well, what are you all going to do for the holiday break?" Blah blah blah. And I started talking about how Christmas. I was excited for Christmas because Santa Claus is going to bring me this, and Santa Claus is going to bring me that. Santa Claus is going to bring me the other. And a kid in my class was like, "Santa Claus isn't even real." And I was like, "Yes, he is." He's like, "No, he's not." And I was like, "Well, I don't know what's wrong with you because Santa Claus is real. I saw him at the mall." He was like, "That's not a real Santa Claus. That's not really Santa Claus. That's just the guy dressed up as Santa." And then he was like, "Well, how? Because he's at all the malls at the same time. So how it could be the one Santa?" I was like, oh, "Okay, so maybe they're helpers. But I know he's real because my mother says he's real." And he was like, "Well, your mother's a liar." Oh, so we're going to skip part of the story and talk about when I was in the principal's office and my mom came to get me. And normally if I'm in trouble, I'm trying to stay small because I don't want no smoke. I already messed up, blah, blah, blah. But this was different. This was righteousness. This is because I had always been told that the worst things in the world were liars and thieves. And he called my mama a liar. Again, I knew I was wrong. I knew I was going to get in trouble for hitting him. But this would not stand. He has impugned our honor, and he must be corrected. And it was like, so tell him Santa is real. No, you're not telling them. You're not telling them. And that's how I found out that Santa wasn't real. What's more is that was the starting point. Well, one of the accelerating points for a lot of my trust issues. Because if my grandmother, my mother, my uncles, my church, if all of them had lied to me, if the TV, if the guy at the mall, I had evidence of all of this. And it's like, if that's all not true and you all knew it, it wasn't one of those things where, they had been tricked too. We had all just been communally deluded. They knew the truth and lied to me anyway. And again, that's not that big a deal, William. There's a reason for it. And I literally have heard these arguments over my entire life. It's one of the reasons I don't share the story too often. But the reality is that trauma is personal. That for me, because I had built my life on the integrity of the adults in my life. I aspired to be like them because they were honest. They were good people. They did the right things. Even if bad things happened, they did the right things. My entire worldview was shattered in that moment. And to be clear, I've never gone back to that point. One, because I realized at that point was a narrative in my head, a story in my head about all of these wonderful adults and me just trying to live up to the expectations of them all. What do you do when you realize that they're liars? And you've been told that the worst people in the world are liars, and they're all liars. Everybody lies. And then I started taking a step back and looking around and realizing that socially, lying was actually the move. Everybody was telling, oh, yeah, how you do? Oh, I'm doing wonderful. You are sitting here crying. But when you pick up the phone, oh, things are going well. So that was a traumatic experience for me that shaped the trajectory of the rest of my life. And so what it does is it also shows up in business. There are literally only two people on the planet who I trust. Only two. And when I say trust in absolute values. Like, I trust them to make decisions on my behalf. My baby sister, Dr. Nicolette Lewis-Saint, and my youngest son, Timothy Zion Honolulu. Not that there's no one else in the world who cares about me. There's no one else who is smart or what have you. But those are two of the smartest people I know. And they are able to make decisions dispassionately. I have seen both of them able to take themselves out and actually help people make decisions that are not in their best interest. Well, in my sister or my son's best interest. I have watched them be able to factor out the stories in their head and look at facts objectively. So that's why I trust their opinion and trust them, kind of unabashedly. Now, my oldest son, I love him to death and he loves me to death, but he has a view of who I am in his head that I like it, but may not be very realistic sometimes. And so just trying to anchor that. And so as I enter in business, I am big on contracts. I'm big on putting things in writing. Why? Because I don't trust you. And not even that I don't trust you and that I think you're going to actively lie to me. I realize that sometimes you just forget. Sometimes you just misunderstood. Oh, I thought we said Tuesday. No, we said Wednesday. No, I'm pretty sure we said Tuesday. No, we said Wednesday. But if it's in writing, and again, I don't mind being wrong. I don't like it, but I don't mind being wrong if we got evidence that I was. But I have difficulty people just telling me I was wrong without being able to back that up. So that's a real thing. But that anchors into the trust issues that I have. And so as you start navigating through business spaces, recognizing where some of the traumas in your life are showing up in business. I know people who have, they are looking for family and they're looking for belonging so much. They don't make distinctions between commercial friends and personal friends. They don't get it. Like for me, I have some amazing commercial friends, and I have commercial friends who have turned into personal friends. Now, the difference for me between commercial friends and personal friends are the source and the nature of our engagement. Because one of the markers isn't just cordial activities between friends, but it is that we engage each other, mutual support, sharing, and things like that. It is important to realize that, like, I have coworkers that we got along famously while I worked at the job. It was so amazing. But there was nothing outside of the place that I went for a paycheck that kept us together. There was no cause, there was no affinity, there was no emotion. It was, we worked together. And then there are people like you all have met, you haven't met Danielle, Dr. Prendergast yet, but she's a commercial friend that turned into a personal friend. You all have met Bonnie Coburn. Bonnie was a professional friend that turned into a personal friend. And the rules are different. Sometimes some of the professional trauma we experience is because we hold professional friends to personal friend standards. A hyperbolic example is that, if I expect, as we are peer in professional areas, peers, when you are a peer with someone, you may share stuff with them and maybe fun and games. You all may, I had one friend, she used to dip out with lunch with her and her girlfriends at work, and it was wonderful. They would stay out a little longer. They would say they were at this place and they wouldn't be. Again, never to the detriment of the organization or any of the work product, But it was one of the things that they did. She got promoted. The dynamics changed. So now when her new subordinates, who were once her peers, were saying, oh, we're at this place, she's like, no, y'all not. I know y'all not there, because I used to say we were there, we weren't there. And so it changed the dynamic, and it was hey, Rico. Oh, you're welcome, Quandra. I appreciate, I appreciate when y'all talk to me. It's lonely in here sometimes, so it's great to know that y'all are out there. And so that was traumatic for her, because in her mind, they were personal friends. And so now that she was elevated, she would be able to do all the things that they had talked about needed to be done. And she assumed that her personal friends, because she was benefiting, would rise to the occasion to support her. But these are your commercial friends. And well, some of them were commercial, some of them were personal. And their personal friends, they did rise to the occasion, blah, blah, blah. But her commercial friends were like, they were trying to find new ways to get over. Because this wasn't about their relationship. This is what they did at work. And so, it took her a while to deal with the fact that she had this image in mind that she was going to have all her people, because they were cool before, and now they would just take it up to a new level and she'd be able to lead them. But no, now she was the boss. The relationship was based on their commercial interaction, and their commercial interaction changed. So now the dynamics of their relationship changes. It happens as well in personal relationships, but the thing that keeps you together in personal relationships tends not to be the paycheck. Well, personal relationships can be traumatic as well. You thought somebody was going to have your back, that they was going to hold you down, 10 toes down, and they bail on the first sign of trouble. That can be traumatic. And so making sure that you understand that there is professional and personal trauma, all of this comes together because it is all your life. Also recognize that a lot of the trauma that you will experience is external. Like somebody did something, someone lied, someone hit you, someone did not live up to the expectations you have. One of the ways that I think for the prevention of trauma, especially in commercial spaces, is to focus first on making sure that everybody's expectations are level set. If we level set our expectations, then we don't have to worry about them not being met or having some kind of misunderstanding later. So again, for me, the way it manifests is I make sure things are in writing. I try to be very clear about what everybody is supposed to do along the way, because I have had adverse experiences where I am like, oh no, I can't. Last time I depended on somebody like this, they didn't show through. Nope. Your trauma also informs your business models. So for me, I have not had a lot of positive experiences. Well, let me take that back, because that is absolutely not true. That is also something trauma does. Trauma skews your view, because what I was about to say is that I have not had a lot of positive experiences depending on people. That is absolutely not true. What I have had is a lot of experiences where I could not depend on people. And those, because they were different than what I expected, those have now become predominant in my mind. And that's just a really quick example how in my head, everybody was going to let me down. That was always a possibility. It's always a possibility, but it's not always my experience. And so my trauma of being let down and having these things happen in my business life has gotten me to develop models that are very automated. If you come to one of my classes, one of the first things that you will find is that there is going to be a video for you to go through all of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about. There's going to be some worksheets and a lot of stuff for you to do before we get to the workshop, because I need to make sure that you all have the information necessary so that we can have a meaningful conversation. I don't trust anymore that people who say that they're in business actually even know what that means, because a lot of times they don't. And I realize they shouldn't. Whoever taught them that? They've been guessing. They saw business from the outside and was like, oh, that's what it must be. And I get that. But I used to have expectations that once you said you were in business, that you would behave a certain way. Once you had an LLC or a corporation, you had done this work and whatever, you would be a certain type of person, able to make certain types of decisions. And that's not the case. Everybody is out here just struggling, getting it in the mud, just making stuff up as they go along. And even in that precarious situation, that can be traumatic. every day waiting to see who calls, what bills you can pay, if your client's going to pay you, that can be traumatic. And if you have had these types of experiences in your life, you may find that your business triggers your trauma. If you have had problems in the past with people not giving you money or people not respecting you, you may start looking at are they not going to give me my money? Oh no, I need to make sure I have all my money up front. If you've been financially traumatized, if you've been professionally traumatized, the idea of having to go out and ask people to give you money for your business or to do sales is traumatic for people because they have not had positive experiences going out and doing things like that. And so as you look at the things that have impacted your life, healing from the trauma needs to also be part of your business plan. Because as an entrepreneur, it is all you. Your decision making, your thoughts, your activities, those will be what shapes your business. And the more that you can get your mind right, the more you can make decisions based on objective reality, the more that you can understand your why, the more likely it is that you'll be successful, that you'll be able to make the decisions that aren't just reflexively trying to make you feel good, that aren't based in fact, that are parts of stories in your head. But as you go through this healing process, you will be in a better position so that you can make decisions that benefit you. Now, I want to really talk about some of the examples that I've seen about how business and trauma interrelate. I've seen many people who start business as an opportunity for self-validation. Where, when I do this, people will know how good I am. Or when I make this much money, or when I open up this type of company, or when I get this type of licenses, then they will know how I am and what I'm worth and that I am worthy. When I've experienced people who look at business like that, it comes from the ones who at least share their trauma with me. It has come from a place where they were neglected, where they were not seen as special or important or popular. And so now they are trying to manifest those things in their adulthood, in their professional life. If I can get just one more award, one more promotion, a little bit more money. It's like, and I talk to people about this, like as their careers progress, you have people who, when you first started, 25,000 a year, that was cool, blah, 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 or 50,000, well, what was it? 44,000 a year was wonderful. If I could just make it to 50, that'd be great. But hell, you were complaining by the time you got to 60. You were still talking about some of the things that were going wrong, because it is not about the money. It is not about the external validation. That is helpful. It feels good. But if you are looking for your business to validate you as a human being, you will be sorely disappointed, because this shit is hard. I find more people than not spend time doubting themselves and questioning their decisions because you're just making it up. You're guessing. There is no rubric on this is exactly how it's going to go. If it was, companies like Enron wouldn't have collapsed. Hell, if it was the entire, if there was, if you could buy your way out of it, Trump would have a much better brand. But there are people, because of their trauma and looking for the business to heal them, they want the business to finally show people how good they are. It's not designed for that. You will find yourself hurting if you're looking for that. Business as identity, and I'll talk about myself on this one. I grew up with a hardworking family. The ones always working, always volunteering, and I just thought that's what life was. And what I also realized was that, growing up at home, there were chores to do and things like that. But when I went out into the world, I had been trained well enough to speak well. I was a rock star. I was well behaved. I was smart. Hell, still the same way now. Outside of the house, I'm a rock star. At the house is, did you wash the dishes? And so what began for me is that my external identity, my academic identity, and my professional my academic ability or my academic standing and my job and career and titles, those became my identity. That's how I saw myself. I saw myself on how hard I worked, how much impact I had on others, and those types of things. Why? Because I didn't feel the support or love at home, because I didn't know what that was supposed to look like. I got caught up in all these fairy tales and stories. So I assumed that at home, it was all, birds flying and butterflies fluttering about and stuff like that. And you're always supposed to feel good. Well, I didn't even know how to feel good. I didn't even know what that was. And so for me, it was, this kind of spark of appreciation and validation happens when I'm out in the work world. So you know what? I'm going to spend most of my time there. I would get, shout outs for doing what now recognize as stupid stuff. I would literally get to work at 6 o'clock in the morning and leave at 11 o'clock at night because it got me props. When I worked, we would have casual Fridays and I would always have on a suit because it got me props. It got me noticed. It got me noticed as a hard worker. And that was my identity. It wasn't until I started really into therapy and understanding is that, all of these proxies for my identity weren't going to work. I needed to be whole in myself. I needed to at least learn how not to hate me, not to doubt me all the time. The imposter syndrome was real. The survivor mentality was real. And it is one of those things that many of us bring to business. We bring to work. Oh, they need to treat me a certain way. It's like, why? How does their treatment identify or define you? It is a commercial relationship. The other part, and we've talked about pimping in the corporate world a little bit, but let's go back to that, to the vocabulary of that topic, because the book is going to be out by next year. I swear to you, it will be. We're going to have a good time. Right now, I pulled together some of my friends and some of my colleagues, and we've been working on it, so it's going to be great. But when we talk about pimping in the corporate world, pimping is the only place that you don't have lobbyists coming to the table and marketing and people trying to spin it and make it sound better. So that is one of the few places in America that we can really take a look at American capitalism as what it is without the conversation getting all muddled around around the value of the service or the righteousness of the conduct. One of the challenges that I find people have in commercial spaces is they don't recognize the pimp-ho dynamic. They believe to themselves to be people and they're in partnership with their employer. No, you're not. It's pimping. We say things like, I've done this for the company, they need to reward me. Well, hell, they already paid you for that. Remember, they gave you money before you did anything for them. Do you want them to pay you for the stuff that you've already done? Well, that's not good business. And so when you're making pitches about what you need to, if hoes are asking for new shoes, it's like, well, wait a minute. Or asking for money for whatever, the pimp's conversation is going to be like, what is that going to get me next? Because you got stuff for what you've done already. And I can pay you this much for what you're doing now. You want more. What am I getting in return? And a lot of times we show up at work thinking that we are boyfriends and not hoes. So I show up at work, well, I should be involved in this decision making. No, a boyfriend or a husband is involved in the decision making. Hoes get told what to do. Well, no, I'm a boyfriend, so I should be treated a certain type of way. Well, no, I work here, so I should be treated a certain type of way. No, husbands get treated a certain type of way. Hoes get treated the way you can get away with. And I think it is the fact that we use this vocabulary back and forth in corporate America about family, about work-life balance, about caring, and these emotional words, which obscures this idea of the power dynamic, because it's all pimping. When you are in a situation where when you're in a situation where you find yourself in that power dynamic, one of the best things, not best things, but one of the things that a lot of these organizations, these pimping organizations do is that they start to try to make your identity tied in with your work. Some of us volunteer for that, but it becomes incredibly helpful because they want you to feel like friends. Why? Because it makes it difficult for you to leave. They want your commercial friends to become your personal friends because now it becomes a thing. So you could leave the job for more money, but are you going to leave Crystal and Mia? Are you gonna the birthday parties and stuff like that? They've been to my house. We share time, and it is what pimps do. They want to create this level of camaraderie and familiarity with among the population. And one of the other pieces is that you have a lot of a lot of this pimping, which being this way of thinking is also can be traumatic. You have a lot of the pimping that wants you to be often in competition for the stuff that they should be giving you anyway. They want you to work for it because they got resources. They, from a pimp's perspective, is like they putting money in. They're trying to figure out how we get more out of you. And a lot of these businesses, just like pimps, they look for people who already have traumatic experience. I remember working with people who worked on Capitol Hill. And there was Senator Mikulski. Actually, I one of my good friends, Michelle Brown, big up to her. Miss you, boo. Looking forward to seeing you sometime soon now because she's down in Charlotte. She was an amazing staffer. And the funny part is she didn't even tell me this story. That people from Senator Mikulski's office, other Congress members and senators would look for them because she would burn through staff real quick. But they were talented. She had a great screening process. She had a great training program. It's just that she was a hard person to work for. And what they found is that a lot of the people who worked for Mikulski and then moved to another legislator, they were much more amenable because they had been through the fire with Mikulski. They had been through the fire, and because she had a temper, and so they had gone through the fire, so they were much more appreciative to lots of work, but without the yelling. And so because that experience was traumatic on them, it shaped their expectations of what's to happen next. They went from I should be treated like this to, oh no, I got treated like a real hoe. And so now I'm just happy with a daddy that don't smack me. It's still related to trauma. And so one of the ways that trauma also can focus or show up in business is the desire to excel. There are some of us who just need to excel. I got to do it. We don't relax. We don't enjoy anything right now because we are so fearful of what's right behind us. Whatever the story is behind us that is coming to us, that we're going to be broke again. This is going to happen. Whatever is right behind us, it will push us. Sometimes we look at that as one of the benefits of trauma. That's not a benefit of trauma. That is a benefit of you. If that was in you, that was in you. The trauma did not put that there. If anything, it just brought it out. But let's be honest, in most cases, it'd be nice to not have gone through the thing in the first place, even if you didn't develop that skill. Because the world should be kind. We should be able to reasonably engage each other. These things should happen, but they don't. Also, we tell ourselves lies all the time. How business is going to work. Oh, when I give my LLC, then I'll be able to talk to this person. I'll be able to get a contract. No. I know we're doing a story right now on getting institutional contracts. And what you find is that there are a lot of people who get government contracts, are very excited about it. And then all of a sudden they realize that the government is many times slow pay. Once you get it, it's great money, but sometimes you got to float. I had one client who had floated the government for 6 months. And so if you think that you are going to get your money in 45 days, you will have planned your resources for 45 days. But what happens when it doesn't come in 90? That is traumatic. That is a commercial type of trauma that we don't talk about a lot. You just need to get over it. It's just business. This is not just business, especially as an entrepreneur. This is part of who you are. This is part of your identity. And you need to be honest about that. And again, it is, especially as an entrepreneur, making sure that you take out time for therapy, whether that's individual or in groups, making sure that if you need meds, that you're taking meds, because this is hard. And if you do not gird your mind, if you do not protect yourself, you could find yourself in a world of hurt unnecessarily. You can end up making business decisions that don't make sense for you or your business because you're responding from a place of pain, a place of trauma. One time there was a client that I was supposed to be doing business with. And this client reminded me of a friend of mine. And this friend of mine has a really great tendency of flaking. They make plans and they don't show, or it's like, oh, something came up, something always, and again, it's always something that comes up. And so this particular client reminded me of her a lot. And then we were supposed to have a meeting, and I contacted her. She didn't reach out. She didn't respond. I was like, oh no. Mm-mm. And I realized after the fact, it seemed very reasonable to me at the time. It was like, you know what? I'm just going to reschedule this because I can't get in contact with you. I'm not going to spend the time, commuting to wherever and then get there. You're not there, blah, blah, blah. Her phone had died or something like that. And she was waiting for me at the location. Hey, Pranithia, right? And so she was meeting at me. She was there at the location. I wasn't there. And I had to, and when she asked me, she's like, why would you think I wouldn't be there? I was like, it hit me. It was like, oh, that's not you. She got caught up in my trauma response. She got caught up in my coping. And if we don't understand how to heal through this, we will bring all of that stuff to business, because you don't stop being you because you're getting a paycheck. You do not stop being you because you are in a commercial context. Best case scenario, you can pretend to be somebody else. You can put a mask on and pretend to be somebody else. The reality is, like shapewear doesn't make you lighter. If you are 300 pounds, you could put on the spankiest spank along with a shape fitter, and the scale will not change, even though the view has. You need to make sure that you are healing, that you are dealing with a lot of the underlying issues. And my recommendation, and again, Grinding Gang, we can help you work through this. My recommendation is that you start to live more authentically. Again, everything ain't for everybody. I tell y'all all the time, I don't keep it 100. I keep it 85 because it's 15% y'all don't need to know about, and hell, 5% I'm trying to forget myself. But you being more authentic ensures that you are more readily able to level set expectations on both sides, where I don't have an expectation that you're going to be able to pay me real quick because I have a better sense of you. So now I'm navigating and negotiating how much money, like when I do business with institutions, they get the, you're going to mess up my money tax, because they will, especially a couple of government agencies that I worked with before. They pay a higher rate than people commercially, because consistently the money will be funny. That's just what it is. But that is, if I take that experience about their money being funny, again, that was traumatic for me. I thought when the first time I had a contract with one of the government agencies, I was like, oh, I'm about to get paid. It's going to be awesome. And then 90 days later, it's like, I just want to get paid. It would be awesome. Why? Because I had unrealistic expectations of what they could and couldn't do. I based my life on what I saw. Why? The contract said 30 days. Why would I not expect you to be good in 45? I did not have I had expectations that were based on the words on the paper. But again, that's not all of it. That's, again, one of the things that have caused me to have issues with trust. And so because of the trust issues I have, these are my issues and have been manifested because of some of these circumstances. Now I take a lot of that with me with other clients. It's like, oh, well, wait, where's the money? I dislike that focus on money. But what I do realize is that if I don't have the focus, my trauma has suggested to me that it may come again. And that is for business, that is a positive move. I have been able to use the trauma in a positive direction to start engaging in better business practices. Things are written down. There are processes in place. I use the trauma to move in a direction that fed me. That is the other thing about trauma. It hits you. You don't have control over the traumatic event, but you get control over how you can use it. And all of us can't use it the same. It is so incredibly personal. And if you're dealing with somebody who's experienced a traumatic event, please don't say shit like, oh, you just need to get over it. Make sure, if that's the type of advice you get, don't give it. If you give, don't give advice. Just refer them to a professional. Because while that may work for you, you're not them. We try to, again, I talked about it before, we have these things that are universally traumatic. But for me, learning about Santa Claus, learning that everybody I knew was a liar, that messed up like literally, I wish somebody would have hit me instead. I wish it was true that they weren't, that Santa Claus was real, one, but two, that my people had not lied to me, that the world had not lied to me. And again, for a lot of you, I said, that's so petty. Everybody knows, everybody gets over it, but I'm not everybody. For me, it actually even, it is injured my life, my spiritual life. Because if at church, they had been, Santa Clauses had been coming through and gifts had Santa's name on it and stuff like that. If that's what happened at church, and I saw Santa, I have pictures with the man. Wait, who was that other guy you were talking about whose birthday is around this time? Jesus. Oh, Jesus. Yeah. So Jesus is real. But last year you told me Jesus and Santa were real. But this year is just Jesus. Okay. I mean, have you seen him? I mean, I saw Santa and you said he was real and he's not, but I've never seen Jesus. Like you said he rose from the dead. I've never seen anybody do that, but I saw presents under the tree with Santa's name written on them. But I'm supposed to believe you now because this is different. Huh. Interesting. Yes, Quandra, and that's the idea. It is that we do not honor the trauma. We do not honor the abuse. We do not honor the betrayals. We do not honor the physical. We do not honor those. We honor the you who was able to be resilient beyond it. I had a friend of mine, she and her mother were getting into an argument, and her mother had substance abuse issues while she was growing up and was abusive as well. And in the argument, she talked about, she was really, talking to her mother about all some of the things that she had done and how it felt. And she's like, well, you talk about me being a bad mother, but look at this. You are successful right now. You have all of this, you are da-da-da-da. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be that way. And in that moment, it cemented for me the poor way to deal with trauma. She honored her poor parenting. She honored her abuse because of the outcomes, because of the strength of her daughter, notwithstanding her abuse, to become this beautiful, amazing person. It wasn't because of the abuse. It was notwithstanding the abuse. It was in spite of. And so a lot of times, that's why I want to make sure that we honor the person, not the circumstance that created the person. Because the abuse I went through, it did not make me a better person. I was a damn good motherfucker before. What it did is it caused me to take that damn good motherfucker and make him different so that he could survive in this new context. The other thing that I want to bring up, especially while we're talking about traumas and how they manifest in business, please understand that you don't get over a trauma while it's still happening. Some of us, our traumas are still happening. Some of us, that person is still a part of our life. Some of us, our bills are still upside down. Some of us, our jobs are still horrible. Some of us, we are still holding secrets. You cannot heal while you are still in the midst of the trauma. So for me, as you are looking through your business piece, as you are looking through the things to do, make sure that you are first trying to end the thing that is oppressing you. If you want to recover from financial trauma, you have to get out of your current financial circumstance. Getting out of the circumstances and healing from the trauma are not the same things. They can be part of a continual process, but one is emergent and one requires resources immediately. The other requires some time and some processing to navigate and heal. It's kind of like if somebody stabs you, it's not like you keep the knife in and you go like, okay, doc, can you, do I put some Band-Aids around it? Do I put some, what do you call it? Some Neosporin? No, you take the knife out, you sew it up first, you stop the bleeding. Afterwards, you may be able to forgive, but it's difficult to forgive. It's difficult to heal while you are still being abused. There are many of us who are abuse manifest as the need to care for others, the need to please people, the need to be validated. Our warped sense of relationships, where there are many of us who are so used to being abused at a high level that we believe that being abused at a low level is a glow up. We can see it real well in relationships. I have a friend who her husband is trash, and was trash before they got married. He is better trash now because they're doing well. And what I asked her was, I'm not going to go into detail of how he's trash, but what I asked her is like, well, why are you with him? And she said, he doesn't do he does do some things that are messed up, but I never have had to worry about him putting his hands on me. He always makes sure that all the bills are paid. I don't have to worry about being put out. He wouldn't do that. I was like, but he does these other things that are not cool. She's like, yeah, but that's just part of relationships. If you have been abused to a certain point, you actually feel like less abuse is a glow up. Like, you don't even conceive of a world where there is no abuse in the relationship, that you don't have to prove your worth to people. That is a trauma response. And a lot of times it manifests itself in business as well. If you've had financial trauma, that'll manifest itself in business as well. You'll be erratic about your prices because you don't have any sense of many times what the value should be. How do you come up with prices? And then when you find out all this shit is made up, that is even scarier, because in your mind, there was a formula. You just had to figure out, no, it's all guessing. And for many of us, the idea that nobody knows, that we're all just out here just making this shit up, that by itself is traumatic. But coming to one of the ways to address trauma, and I'm gonna wrap up with this one, is the truth. Facts. Things that can be objectively measured. Now, are they defining of all of life? Absolutely not. Facts are a starting point. Facts are an anchor point on which we can base conversations, on which we can base interactions. Facts are not, in fact, can help us grow in our understanding, but we should start there, because the reality is that the more facts we have, the more realistic the stories we tell in our heads can be. Because if I know it's raining outside, I don't have a story in my head of like, I'm gonna put on some shorts and a tank top, boy, and hang out. It's like, no, I know it's raining, so I'm not even doing that. I'm looking for my poncho. It's a little example, but the same thing happens in business. If I know that working with a government agency means that I probably won't get I think this last government agency, I worked in March and it just came in June. If I know that, I can plan for that. But if I don't know that, it's going to be traumatic. Why? Because I'm going to build my life, my expectations, and my ideals around things that aren't really that real. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this has been a great opportunity. I thank you all. I thank you, Rico, Quandra, Pernithia. Thank you all so much for being here. And guess what? We will be black tomorrow.